fact that Port Harcourt beat Oxford to clinch World Book Capital City is sufficient reason for a round of applause. But I also thought that Coco's delivery was exceptional. Right. We're going to move on very quickly because, like I said, we've eaten into much of the time. And I'd like to ask for a few remarks. We had hoped that Professor Wole Soyinka would be joining us today, and indeed he had confirmed that he would be our guest. But like you know, there was the funeral of the late Kofi Awono, and, the funeral, what's it called, celebrations, all of the, I'd like to call them celebrations of the late Kofi Awono. And so he was unable to join us. He's, however, sent us a statement. I'm not sure if that will be read immediately. Dr. Ogumbi is supposed to read that statement. But while we wait for Dr. Yemi Ogumbi, who would read Professor Soyinka's statement to us, I'd like to invite someone who's been my friend for very long, and who I knew before he became such a very important man. When I knew him, we used to pound the streets of Benin. I didn't know he would one day be such a big man. And no, I don't mean that literally, honestly. But Ogaga Ifowodo is, Coco can't remember him. But he's always been an activist poet. But beyond that, he's someone whose passion for Nigeria is something that I like a lot. Ogaga is a poet, he's a writer, he's a teacher of literature, but he actually read law. That's his first degree. I think he read it to please his father, and he did what he really wanted to do, which was literature. I'd like to ask Ogaga to make his interventions at this point. And I think he would do us a favor of making sure he reads and performs one of those poems that always excite us. Ogaga.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. It's a pleasure to be here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for all your time. It's summer here, and this is when everybody wants to be outside, but you've chosen to be here to join us in celebrating Port Harcourt as the UNESCO World Book Capital City of the year 2014. And I couldn't think of a better moment to leave Texas and come back to the East Coast where I did graduate school, and to any better reason to want to spend an afternoon like this indoors. So thank you very much. I think my good friend, Ivy, we used to call her Ivy at UNIBEN, is trying to deflect what she knows is coming to her from me. That since she joined them in power, she has forgotten about me. And she's trying very hard to deflect that, you know. But you can't get away from it. Yes. All right. It's World Book Day. Port Harcourt as book capital of the world we are celebrating. And I can't think of any better thing to do than to read from books. It happens to be that these books are mine, but it's poetry. So I won't take much of your time. But we need to have a flavor of what Nigerian writers do with the book, whether in scholarly form or in creative form or any other form that the book presents itself, photographs, images. And more important is that my third book of poems called The Oil Lamp is entirely about the Niger Delta. You've all heard stories of oil pollution, fire outbreaks, those, by the way, by the lamps, I mean those gas flaring stacks that light up the Niger Delta day and night, which ironically, and that would be very gallows humor, our only constant supply of light, since never expect power always, or what has been changed to PHCN, And the Nigerian people have very wisely also rebranded as Problem has changed its name, never gives us electricity. So the oil lamps, ironically, are the ones that light up the dark interstices of the Niger Delta day and night. But that comes at a price. But the whole plan of the oil lamp, this book, is 1,001 words. In 1998, I believe, there was a huge fuel scarcity. One of those perennial condemnations of Nigeria, literally living by the river Niger and washing your hand with spittle. So living on top of abundant oil and gas and never able to power a home 24 hours. So, or power vehicles or anything that we use petrol and diesel and refined petroleum to power, never able to find it in enough amounts to move the economy along. So there is an explosion somewhere in Jesse, Delta State, and officially we're told 1,000 people died. And the reason we are told was that they were scavenging for refined petrol and kerosene being transported to the city because there's not enough of it around. Now, whatever the cause was, truth is more than 1,000 people died. So I decided that the one extra would be for the unknown who died or who were maimed or who suffered in any which way the trauma of that event, which is replicated in the Niger Delta. Then I chose to focus on 3 of the causes célèbres of the Niger Delta. Ogoni, Odi, where an expeditionary force, military force, was sent to flatten a whole community. Odi is in Bayelsa, right? Yeah. Flatten a whole community because some security officers that were sent there to pacify the youth who have been protesting, the neglect of the Niger Delta, had been kidnapped and killed. Not that they should go after those who kidnapped them or committed the murder, but that the whole community should be flattened. And the army boasted about it when it was all over. They came out saying, there's no place called Odi anymore. Odi has been flattened. And then, of course, Ogoni, the most famous of all the eyesores of the Niger Delta. But I would choose to start because this is an international gathering, and I was speaking with UGORJI just yesterday night, and he was reciting his Pan-Africanist credentials to me, and I was nodding approvingly. So I will, as a gesture of going beyond Nigeria for a moment, I will start with one of the new poems I'm writing to go into a 4th collection of poems, which focuses on some of the more notorious, some of the most unsightly sores of Africa: Liberia, Rwanda, Zimbabwe, Darfur. Well, of course, Ogoni has been covered here. I mean, Niger Delta has been covered here, and on. We can keep reciting, the list. Sierra Leone, which started when my last year when I was working with the Civil Liberties Organization before coming to the US to do graduate studies in poetry and literature. One day I was shocked to my bone marrow when a young man just came in with his 2 arms amputated. And that was the signature barbarism of the so-called rebels of freedom in Sierra Leone. His 2 arms had been amputated. And he was seeking our help in the CLO, the Civil Liberties Organization, for prosthetic limbs. The name he called it is, I can't remember now, but some kind of electro something that will enable him to be productive again. He was a young businessman buying and selling, going between Freetown and Lagos, and they wanted to send a message to the Nigerian government through him, so they cut off his 2 arms. The image haunted me for a long time, even after I had come to the US and I was at Cornell doing graduate studies. So I wrote a poem called Freetown, which has been published in a magazine. And as I began to think more of this collection of poems I want to do, tentatively called A Good Mourning, mourning as in mourning the dead, which is around the whole idea of mourning our aborted march to a rebirth of democracy with the June 12, 1993 elections that were canceled, I thought I would focus on some of these eyesores of Africa. So this one, which is recent, is called simply Robert Mugabe. As you know, he recently won a landslide victory to be president of Zimbabwe again. If only by scowling at the clock, he could make it cower into the wall till he heard his final cluck, like an old hen surprised by a hawk, of surrender to his iron will. Or, failing that, make time mock itself by racing backwards till he was rocked again by the definite chants of his praise, sang decades ago, when he was Messiah and his tears salted the earth. He fought to the death to reclaim from settlers. If only by some ruse or reckoning he could recapture that time long lost, the old cause which whited out by the blinding light of power brothers who do not know that to love Zimbabwe is to worship Mugabe. If only God would lift his heavy arm to stop the ticking clock and grant that he alone may live disenthralled from time. And after that, what I propose to do is to read a poem from my first collection of poems called Homeland and Other Poems. A poem I wrote, how many years ago now? I was an undergraduate then, an undergraduate law student. And he's a young man. I was then, at the time, I think, Secretary of the Students' Union of the University of Benin, agonizing about the fate of his country. At that time, under the grip of military dictatorship, Babangida, General Babangida, who would later abort the dream of the entire country, like I said earlier, was firmly in power, and his minion was doing all she could to destroy academic autonomy and any proper sense of learning at the University of Benin. It's called Homeland. What are the things that grow here? Those that grow from stone, lacking life or root, flesh or water, things cut as caps for the baldness of stone. What are the things that flourish here? Those that rise with dust, without teeth for the nourishment of sand, things frail and fallen that fly and toss with every wind. What are the harvests here? Of corn crippled before teething, of tomatoes rotted before ripening, of yams poorer than the planted head, of ash and gravel, ant hills and sand hills. What are the dwelling places? Houses bitter like a weeping face, homes grievous like smoke pipes, walls held up by pillars of anguish, where lament makes bed and roof. And how do children grow here? Out of wombs whipped with want and desire, they burst forth to be tough like street leather, sweet and hardy like sugar cane, to learn love in safe time. Here, we will walk down the streets where laughter is hidden in deep places and stores cannot open their doors, chock full with hearts that bleed from gathered wounds. And you see, nothing can grow here but agony. Now, it's an admittedly thank you. It's an admittedly very bleak perspective on a young man's country. And even now, it turns out that we can look at those years of the 80s when I was an undergraduate as the good old days. Things seem to be getting worse, ironically. But I've just seen a presentation on Port Harcourt as a World Book Capital for 2014. and how Port Harcourt managed to beat out the likes of Oxford that not too long ago, and perhaps could still regard as one of the world book capitals. So if we could do that, we can do a whole lot of things. And I saw this slideshow also of the things that are going on, how schools that look like goat sheds are beginning to look like proper places for learning. Now, because we're on the theme of power, I want to read from just a few selections from my second book of poems called Madiba. As you know, Madiba is the nickname of Nelson Mandela. And again, he's a young man who was looking for heroes. As Secretary General of the Students' Union at the University of Benin, our secretariat was named after Mandela. So it was called the Nelson Mandela Secretariat of the Students' Union, University of Benin, which IB can attest to. So I had Mandela as a constant inspiration every time I was there. So, lamenting the sore lack of heroes in my land, I looked up to South Africa and thought I would do a sequence of 27 sonnets called Sonnets Around the Long Walk to Freedom, loosely around his autobiography of the same title, The Long Walk to Freedom. The section I'm going to read from sonnets 10 to 16. And that is because, like I said, of the theme of power and how those of you who have been paying attention know how it applies to River State. I don't think I will say more than that at this point. Nights into days, into nights, endless grief. But come more nights. Let Barabbas the thief grovel at the cross and go to heaven. But come more bits, and I would as often be free, beyond bounds, as in marching feet that dead tanks and dancing proclaimed the street. The hands of time chained to the rock I broke stood still. The world hung fragile on its spoke, and I'd had time enough to love the sea, to scour its depths for the lost clock, the key to the road followed by the crossing Jews, and I'd had time enough for all views of the life to come, pressing the wind vein against the wind, free from the crusted plain. There are no dead ends, only the birthplace of awaited dreams. Plumbed with the bold mist, the hidden road opens to the dance hall. The river washes brighter the flower's shawl. War or peace or war without end, the goal. Death and grief and death till none dare the toll. To pass the neighbor's house quietly, stabbed by the silence that dwells in it. Flagged down by the stranded traveler, to take fright and flee from him so he breaks by midnight. To let a gun shoot at the falling leaf. To raise the house, seeking to trap the thief. There are no dead ends. Beyond the closed sky is the kingdom of the brave and the sky. Through the dark forest, the high branch was my radar, and I could walk alone till I heard the echo and the water falling from stone. And I could join the spring singing, I will wash your feet, coated with dust, flow to those that thirst and make the fields grow. Now we may judge outside the blinding flash of war. The child shall sleep tonight. The gash of battle heals with a smile on mother's face. Men shall spend evenings with their daughters. Laughter at the outskirts of town turns scarred lips with a returning song. The orchard sips the dew and stoops with fruit. And children pluck apples with their stones. The hour has struck. So dance with me, Oliver. Rise and dance. You whom an angel set free took the chance and lit a fire in the rain. Take my hand, govern, who governed rage with reason and banned regrets of rash action. Come to this dance, all of you, defiant to the death, lance in hand for all untended boils. Raise your voice, shout, Amandla, and break the earth on your graves with Ngawetu. Now, beyond fear or loathing or joy in vengeance, bring to bear on the days ahead the forgiving influence of the grave. Guide my feet to the confluence of memory and faith. Bind me to the path you died clearing, and stay watch this day's aftermath. So I will just take, I will just take 3 minutes, and I promise 3 minutes, to close from when Major Paul Okutimo was funded by Shell and the Nigerian government to pacify Rivers State. I was still working with the Civil Liberties Organization then, and I saw that a copy of that memo where he was outlining the ways in which they can pacify the Niger Delta so that they can keep drilling and selling and stealing the oil money. And he boasted he knew 228 ways to kill a human being. And he boasted on Channel 4 British television, also did a documentary where he boasted about how he would drive everybody into the bush. They would surround the town and start shooting and bombing, and everybody would run into the bush. So what I'm going to read now is a few sections, 3 sections from the part of the oil lamp on Ogoni. At this point, he's boasting his methods of killing and how he was pacifying the place. And by the way, here I've fictionalized him. He becomes Major Kitemo, which the people means kill them all, Major kill them all. I prefer the nights when oil lamps twinkled over the evening tide catch in wet nets, fish women smelling of eau de poison, and buyers bent like shrimps over trays and mats, haggling over prices without a care. We will surround the town, but keep the roads clear. At my word, big guns could go off, and at first, the fish market, always a hubbub equal to the sea's roar, would be dead still, and you could hear a lamp, its oil drying, splutter in rage, or the chink of change dropped by shocked hands. We paused for the oar to revive them, till we saw them fling away the fish as if they were marine bombs. We sustained fire then, till all the lamps gasped and surrendered to night, till only the light of our fire streaked in the bloated darkness as houses quenched their lamps to hide their fear, and their occupants fled to the bush through the paths I had kept open. I think I will skip the remaining 2 and close on this note. The problem we have with Nigeria today can be traced to Lord Lugard as just one way of looking at it, with the amalgamation of 1914. One day, I was returning from work, worked at our office of the Civil Liberties Organization, was the Surulere, and those of you who know Lagos, I was on a minibus, and at General Gusanya intersection, where we stopped, the door opened, and then a swarm of beggars came, were begging, and then the conductor said something in response to the pleas of the beggars. That is what you are going to find out, what they said, what the conductor said, which becomes a people's history or the problem of Nigeria. This poem is called God Punish You, Lord Lugard. And when I heard it, I did not immediately, think I would write a poem about it, but it first just couldn't leave me alone. And eventually, I realized that I would simply have to write a poem about it. I mean, that's what poets do, after all, Oh, I'm looking at the wrong book, that's why, yes. Okay, 21. Okay. The traffic warden's white and yellow sleeve stopped our transport, a Lagos minibus brought from one of the rust heaps of Europe, part of the great scheme to gain reprieve for the city's long-suffering commuters. A horde of beggars swarmed the bus. He beat all to the vantage position in front of the open door. He had good manners, and what he lacked, such as the Queen's English, he faced with uncommon calm and courage. Blind and battered with a withered left arm, not for him, the plain and unlearned, help me for chop, I beg, God go bless you. Some flourish or polish, he thought, would persuade far more than suffering's worst gown. and so he. Good day, brothers and sisters. Have mercy on me. Please have sympathy. Allah's peace for you. In the bus now, silence and private wars between PROF and Charity. Have your brother, have sympathy on me. The conductor, scorning all etiquette, laughed loud, pitying country, not beggar, and swore, God punish you, Lord Lugard. Now you bring this English, come Nigeria. The white and yellow arm beckoned the bus. A wild fury of horns startled it past, ferrying us beyond claims of Charity and of Lugard's shadow in the black smoke. Thank you very much.